Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us for Operational Excellence in Energy, Chemicals, and Resources. My name is Nicole Bamford, and I'm the moderator for today's event. On behalf of Leslie, Quinn, Candace, Grant, and I, we thank you for joining us. This presentation, Building Field Operator Competency Remotely 24/7, 365, will be given by Francis Montemurro, Director of Operations at Voovio Technologies, and Christian McDermott, Country Manager at Voovio Technologies. And their presentation promises to be well worth a listen. Before we get started, here are some quick administrative points. During the webinar, if you have questions for the presenters, please submit them in the Q&A box on your screen, and these will be answered during the question portion of the session. Likewise, for any technical issues, please write them into the Q&A box and we'll get to them right away. The widgets on your screen can be resized and dragged around for your viewing preferences. We encourage you to visit the Resource Center on your screen for additional content and resources we and our sponsors have provided for you. So make sure you're sitting comfortably, and I'll now hand it over to Christian so we can begin.
Thank you, Nicole. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. So in this session, we're going to show you how manufacturing plants can build field operator competency remotely, 24/7, 365. So what do we mean by remotely? Well, using a computer or a tablet, operators can sit anywhere and learn their process and procedures. They do not need to rely on people, for example, the senior or experienced operators, to be with them. Knowledge transfer can happen without any of them being on site. And this can free up those experienced operators and SMEs to focus on other business priorities. So we're going to show you how you can set this up and implement this at your site and the proven results you can expect. But first, let's start off with a poll question. Does your organization have around-the-clock, 24/7, 365 remote training capability? So choose your answer, and we'll give it a few seconds and move to the results. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you. So most of you do not have this capability. So hopefully this, what you're going to learn today will be beneficial. And of course, in the Q&A, we'd love to hear from you. So what are the inherent challenges we face in manufacturing? These are the drivers at the center of our discussion this morning. So retirements. For the last several years, we've been seeing around 10,000 baby boomers, or we could call them experts, retire every day. The loss of institutional knowledge continues to be a big concern. So how do you capture that and pass it on? And what about unplanned downtime or OEE losses, such as quality losses and delayed startups? And let's not forget incidents, including environmental releases and safety-related incidents. These could be caused by not following procedures or simply by not having the right SME available at the right time. Competitiveness is an ongoing challenge. Our industry is always under pressure to be more efficient and competitive, especially with the supply and demand swings we've seen recently. The pandemic obviously hasn't helped. A lot of us have seen lower demand for our products. And the pandemic has exacerbated these challenges, highlighting the fact that our business is really very people dependent at the site, and restricted access to the site adds even greater pressure to the situation. So we can actually control or even eliminate these pain points by increasing operator competency and increasing access to collective knowledge within their sites. So the value you can unlock is huge, and there's an example from McKinsey here recently putting a figure to just the collective knowledge aspect of it, access to collective knowledge. But with that, I'd like to pass the stage to Fran Montemuro, who spent his career managing manufacturing plants and knows these pain points very well because he lived them night and day for 35 years. So Fran.
Thank you, Christian. As Christian discussed, there are several pain points within the industry, and that's the why it is important to increase operator competency. Specifically in this chart shows downtime losses or OEE losses within the manufacturing industry. Number one is supply or no demand. And number two is a surprising result because number three is where we spent a lot of money over the recent years, last 5-10 years, trying to address equipment reliability, equipment failure. But if you look at number two is focused on poor operating practices, failure to execute procedures as detailed, inconsistencies across shifts. Many of us refer to that as operational discipline. So about 23 to 25% of the losses within industry fall specifically around operational discipline issues. Building on that a little more around operational discipline, building operator competency. If you think about what our operators are asked to do whenever they are new to a unit or are a new hire within a manufacturing organization, they are asked to train and qualify on hundreds of procedure pages just within a process unit. And what we have found in our projects are these procedures are written with generalizations, ambiguities that assume operator competency. Detailed on the page are some examples of those generalizations. In addition to these ambiguities that exist in the procedures, the operator is not afforded the opportunity to learn the entire procedure, mainly because the plant is in operation. So they're not afforded the opportunity to start up or shut down an entire process, complete an equipment swap. So when they qualify after 2 to 3 months, they really only learn about 30 to 40% of the content that will be required for them to be fully productive and effective. And because our seasoned operators are becoming scarce, because the baby boomers are retiring, and our non-essential personnel are being asked to work remotely, work from home due to the pandemic, these operators are then left with the general procedures telling them to close all the bleeders, all the open-ended lines, resulting in an increase in incidents and unplanned events within the industry. So with that, I'd like to turn it over back to Christian so he can show the Voovio demo.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here. Fran, you're going to have to shout out if you experience any issues here. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. What you're looking at is a utilities complex. And this is an example of our digital replica. So this is the environment within which you are able to train remotely. And I'll talk more through it as we navigate around the digital replica before going on to procedures, the ability to simulate procedures. So with that, I'm going to take my mouse and walk through the replica. So I am doing this from my laptop remotely. I'm not in the office, but I'm able to walk through a real plant. It's photorealistic. It is all the equipment. It is how it is in real life. And as you walk around, you'll notice I can turn corners. I can look around, turn around. So you have the same degrees of freedom as you pretty much would in real life. You'll see as I turn around here, there are these green boxes. So you can also have equipment tagged and labeled. So operators, anywhere in the control room, from home even, can access and view their real equipment with the correct names. And if you click on one of them, you can get a detailed view of that piece of equipment. In this case, it's a valve, and I can even grab the valve with my finger on my touch screen or your mouse and, rotate it. So we can recreate the real functionality of equipment. The stuff you're seeing right now is, of course, small items and instruments, but we can tag vessels, pumps, compressors, things like that. And, operators can find things without needing to rely on those experienced operators simply by opening up a search box, typing in what they want to find. For example, 993, it's a valve. You click on it, and it will take you straight to that location in the plant where that valve is. So you don't have to rely on people to find things. And, we're currently on a virtual conference here. So I'm sharing my desktop remotely. So you can even share this for rack-up meetings, for planning tasks and jobs, or just checking things before you go in the field. Within the replica, so within digital replicas, you can also embed what we call enhanced views. So this is where you have a piece of equipment like this air ejector and a bunch of labels at the bottom. And we can click on these icons and activate the flows. So here you can review or refresh your memory on how this piece of equipment works. It is a tool you can use for training remotely, or even just for refreshing before you go in the field, or even take it with you in the field on a device. And likewise, where you have complex manifolds, we get requests from customers for these types of enhanced views all the time. Operators can interact with these valves and understand how this process works. So you'll see my mouse here on the right. I can click on it and open. Yep.
Christian, let's just make sure folks can see the demo. I think they may have to click on their media player to see it.
Okay. Are you able to confirm if people can see what I'm showing?
Yes,
if they click on her. Okay, great.
Yes.
Thanks. Well,
perfect. So this example, you'll see I have my mouse waving around, and I can open and close these valves simply by clicking on them. And here, it allows you to review and refresh things again when you're not in the field. All you need is a computer, a tablet, or something like that. There's no special hardware required for this type of digital replica. So having that replica, your real plant on a screen allows you to utilize it for all sorts of different needs, including building competency in procedures. So what you're looking at right now is a version of the simulator here, procedure simulator. It is a guided module. So think of this like a virtual SME, a virtual trainer almost. On the screen, you will have the replica. So you're all familiar with this now. Below that, we have the map again, so you can always see where you are. On the left, this would be the customer procedure. So this is the procedure that the operator would have in their hands or print out or use. Above that, this is where Fran alluded to before. This is an action-oriented checklist. The reason why we have this in addition to the procedure is a procedure may have a generic step such as close all the drain valves. But maybe there's 11 drain valves. So up here, we would have 11 action items because you have to walk to every drain valve individually and close them. So you do them you don't forget one, or you do them in the right sequence and so forth. So let's do the first couple of steps here. I'm going to click on this valve and I'm physically having to close it. So having this interactive replica allows you to actually interact with your equipment. Once I've completed that step, it takes me to the next step in the procedure. And you'll notice a little box pops up. So this is where we can tackle those knowledge transfer challenges that we alluded to before. This is a knowledge snippet where you can insert text, like in this example, which is explaining why this valve is left open. But you could have video. You could have a link to another document or other information that is crucial for the operation of this valve here or this step. And it's captured in a way that an operator can easily absorb, whether they're experienced or not. So this virtual SME will literally guide you through your procedure, allowing you to practice and learn. But what about testing? Testing is a key part of building competency. So let me finish by showing you this. This is a test module where you are completely alone, unassisted in the replica. So I could walk completely the wrong way here, but let me do the first step correctly, and you will see you get immediate feedback on my performance. So I'm going to look up, and I'm going to close this valve. Again, you physically have to interact with your computer screen and click confirm. And you'll see on the left here, you get immediate feedback. So the system is tracking everything I do. I got this action correct. But what if I make a mistake? So let me walk to where we were earlier and crack open this valve here. And you'll see when I confirm I've completed it, I have that immediate feedback, and it even logs the valve which I touched, which was the wrong one. So here the output of such a test is a report. And it's tied to your name, it's tracked and it's recorded. And it means that you can learn and test competency on a wide variety of procedures, whether they're long or short. You can do entire procedures or sections of procedures, but it allows you to really scale that competency building. And doing all this on a laptop or a computer, in addition to the field on-the-job shadowing that you can fit in, it really can scale competency and access to knowledge in a very user-friendly way. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and go back to Fran, who will continue with the slides. So if anyone can't see the slides now, please let us know.
Okay, thank you, Christian. So what's on the screen now is data we've collected over project implementations. And the y-axis is operator competency. The x-axis is time. And the blue arrow depicts what we have found in industry, working with our customers, the traditional way of training and onboarding or qualifying operators. There's some level of classroom, some level of reading SOPs or SP manuals, and then job shadowing from 1 to 3 months. Operators spend time in the field following an experienced operator, finished off by some type of test, whether it's skills demonstration or what have you. With Voovio, the green arrow, the operator is afforded the ability to practice simulations 24/7, independent of the availability of a subject matter expert, of a trainer, or of a learning and development coordinator. So these operators can actually practice, and when they feel confident enough, they can take the standardized test that Christian mentioned. It's the same test for all the operators. They can demonstrate their competency through the standardized test, and be qualified in that procedure prior to going in the field to demonstrate their competency. What we have seen over our project implementations are competency gains by 100%. As I mentioned earlier, operators are not afforded the opportunity to practice all procedures because equipment is running and they cannot get in the area to start up or shut down, et cetera. This affords them opportunity to practice those startup procedures, equipment swaps. In addition, we've seen productivity gains of 30 to 50% because the SMEs are now freed up to work on higher gain activities, whether it's projects, continuous improvement activities, et cetera. So this is starting to show the how field operator simulation can benefit and drive operator competency to address some of those whys we've identified earlier, unplanned downtime, et cetera. Moving on, we collected data over project implementations, and this shows the competency improvement that we've been able to show by operator involvement. The blue curve shows operator competency when we first deliver a project. We deliver the project, we will train the operators on how to use Voovio, and for those operators that are qualified in the job or in those procedures, we will ask them to take the competency test. That initial test is shown by the blue curve. Scores range from the low 50s up to 100%. We then ask those same group of operators to practice using Voovio, the guided learn refresh module, and then come back in several weeks and have them take that same test again. And the results are that orange line or orange curve where all the results are above 80% and the standard deviation is a lot tighter. So competency is definitely improved, and it is achievable through we can see the results through the test assessment. Now to actual results that we've experienced with our customers. This chart shows customer results in specific units across 4 different customers. The first 4 columns highlight some hard dollar savings, some return on investment data that we've captured. And the 5 columns to the right it's data associated with the project, whether it's delivery timing, resource requirements, et cetera. I do want to highlight customer number 4. This customer has been able to free up their learning and development coordinators, their SMEs, from working overtime while qualifying the operator in the area. And over 2 years, they've been able to validate savings of $265,000 because they've been able to free up those trainers, and the operators have been able to train on their own time and become competent in procedures. In addition, this same unit was having issues with delayed startups, unplanned shutdowns, time to get the first quality. They've been able to document and validate over $500,000 in a year due to the ability for the operator to practice procedures prior to executing them in the field. Again, the field operator can practice using the guided refresh learn modules, practice taking the test before they go execute a field. So it's real savings for our customers. One additional chart I would like to show was a chart that BASF presented at the AFPM Reliability and Maintenance Conference last year. They showed this chart. The Geismar, Louisiana Utilities Unit implemented Voovio, and they focused on some specific issues they were having with operators executing startup and shutdowns of specific pumps and blowers. You can see the impact was significant between the downtime and the repair costs associated with these pumps and blowers. It was a great example where operators would practice these simulations prior to going to the field to execute, and then over a year's time, they were able to execute these procedures without having issues and avoiding the costly repair costs and downtime costs associated with these procedures. With that, I'd like to move to the next polling question. Does your organization have any of the following manufacturing challenges that could be addressed with improved operator competency? You can choose one or you can choose several. Okay, thank you. With that, we'll go to a summary chart that summarizes the benefits of simulation for the field operator. It definitely improves performance, as we've shown in our results, and it is easy to implement. Operators have the ability to practice their procedures in a real plant replica 24/7, 365 without depending on the availability of a subject matter expert. It speeds, we have data to show the speed to competency is improved by 100%. In addition, it reduces the time required for the SMEs, the trainers, the learning and development specialists to spend with those operators, qualifying them in their job. This reduction, we have results showing 50% reduction. This affords those as SMEs and other resources to spend time on higher gain activities like continuous improvement projects, etc. Reduce or eliminate unplanned events or environmental releases, safety incidents, etc. Again, we have demonstrated results where the proven reduction in equipment failure, loss of primary containment, flaring, the savings have all been validated by our customers. From an ease to implement, minimum resources are required to implement the project. It takes 3 to 7 days of the SME. 3 to 4 days are spent with our engineers at the site, walking the procedures, creating those action checklists, eliminating the ambiguities that exist in procedures, as well as taking the photos so we can accurately depict the plant as well as create the simulation for those procedures. And then from the time we receive the PO to the time we deliver the project, the typical project is delivered within 14 to 16 weeks. And lastly, but important, we do have operations expertise on our staff. We spend the time required with our customers to ensure that they have the operators trained, they're competent in using Voovio, and we see that through adoption, through the change within the organization so operators are comfortable using Voovio and that the resource team is receiving the benefits that they expect from the Voovio implementation. With that, a brief show of the customers that are currently using Voovio. And then I'd like to open it up for any questions.
Great. Thanks, Francis. We do have some questions from the audience here, so we'll get right to them. The first question being, for mid to big range of refinery, how long does it take to implement Replica and in which cost approximately?
So, Fran, do you want to take that one or should I?
So sure. Depending on the size and the number of procedures, our typical project implementation is, again, 14 to 16 weeks. We will review procedures, whether, again, it depends on if there's, we'll assume 10 to 20 procedures. Again, we can implement that project within 14 to 16 weeks. And that's a standard replica with us shooting the plant site within those 10 to 20 procedures.
And I can answer the cost part of it. It's very difficult to give you obviously a price without knowing what we're pricing, but the best way to do that is for us to look at the procedures, and that's basically it. So yeah, if whoever wanted to get in touch with us and have us quote procedures, please get in touch.
Great. Thanks, gentlemen. Next question is, what would you need to develop a simulation SME for one of our plants? Licensing needs, system update related issues, etc.
So, I mean, I can start off answering that question. So, yeah, what we need is the procedures. So you need to select some of those critical procedures you would want to be simulated, ones that are causing you, the greatest pains or have the biggest benefit. That's all we really need. It also helps to have maybe a plot plan of the area, but that's all we need to give you a plan, a price, and all of that. Licensing needs, there is a licensing component to Voovio, and we have a couple of different options. The most popular of which is in the cloud with lots of different capabilities. But any other really specific questions on that, we'd be happy to take that offline.
Great, thank you, Christian. Next question is, what would be the effective way to train virtually for the industrial plants, LNG, refinery, chemical, etc., under construction? It is difficult to train virtually for an industrial plant under construction.
Yeah, so I'll take that one. So we can work with our customer. Depending what is built, we can either use the CAD model and start to create some interactive simulations with the established procedures. If the plant is near mechanical completion, then we can, again, show up on site, do the photo shoot, and create the simulations using those photos with the customer's procedures, and then give the customer those simulated procedures, all 4 modules, so they can push them out to the operator and let them to start practicing on executing those procedures. So it really depends on what is available at the customer facility, whether we would use the CAD model or do a photo shoot of the facility and create the content that way.
Great, thank you. Next question is, have you any data related to human error, deviations, or discard reductions?
Well, again, the one chart we showed earlier in a presentation, about 23% of the unplanned downtime is due to procedure execution. That one probably highlights the biggest impact of human error in the manufacturing industry versus equipment failure is only about 11%. So I would say about 23 to 25% in the manufacturing industry is due to human error or procedure not consistent with practice.
Perfect. And we have time for one more question, and that question is, implementing the Voovio depends mainly on number of procedures regardless of the number of plants in a refinery. Is this right?
I can start off with that one. Yeah, so what we do is based on procedures. If you have multiple plants in a refinery and you want to do, small batches of procedures for each of those plants, that's fine as well. We have customers who do both, who focus on for example, the sulfur block in a refinery, and then at a later date, maybe 6 months later, they want to do procedures in another part of the refinery. So it really depends on the customer.
Yeah, and just to build on that, Christian, the value of the replica is significant as well. So yes, we will definitely look at the procedures and the size of the replica, but the benefits that our customers are seeing using the replica are quite significant. They can use them. They use the replica for TAR planning, for turnaround planning, for process overviews for the operators, the ability to log on remotely and interact with the shift, whether it's during a shift rack up or troubleshooting. So the benefits not only of the procedures, but of getting the replica of the refinery. I just wanted to make sure we mention the benefits of the replica.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Francis and Christian, for your interesting and informative webinar. For those in the audience, if you want to listen again, this webinar will be available on demand shortly. And finally, thank you to you wherever you are for taking the time to listen in. We look forward to having you on the next session starting in just a few moments. And again, thank you so much, Francis and Christian, for your presentation today, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.